All right, so I'm taking it easy this morning. I've been gearing up for hunting season, and I have completely destroyed a set of arrows I bought, uh, trying to get into a groove. And I had actually made some arrows a little while ago. This is an ugly arrow. It's just a poorly napped glass tip, artificial sinewed on, and just kind of a copy of a Neolithic double fletched arrow that I saw on, I think it's Will Lord's channel. It is a little similar to a like a Cherokee double fletched, but they use like turkey tails. But as I destroyed my arrows, I actually put this into my firing rotation, and I was surprised at how strong it held, or how strong it was, and how straight it shot. So just for kicks, I've decided to make a couple more, and all I'm using is some dowel rods. These are poplar dowel, and they're 3/8. They're actually pretty strong, especially once you kind of shorten them just a little bit. But I had made some double fletched, like top and bottom, and I really actually didn't like these. I don't know why. They would fly all right, but if I really pulled back on the bow and let it go, these things they'd hook and spin and everything. And this one, designed like this, just for some reason, it just flies straight. So this is my personal preference, and these are just for fun. I wouldn't necessarily hunt with these, not yet anyways. But all I used is, for the one that works really well, are chicken feathers. Rhode Island red hen feathers that I've got from my chickens. They just drop them, and I've got a whole wad of them. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of show how I make these. This isn't anything like, spectacular, so I just want to document it. And what I actually want to do is rebuild the arrows that I've already made. So I'm going to actually just pull these apart, and all you need is some kind of string. I'm using artificial sinew, but dental floss will work really well. So and also a little bit of Gorilla Tape. Right here, I just have a very thin wrap. If you just tear off like a 1/4 inch of Gorilla Tape and put right here, and you can do this with the string, but it just kind of helps keep the string, because this is the part that will come off your arrow, or not your arrow, but your bow as the arrow slides past it. So it just kind of gives a spot there that you can, well, one, if you're shooting off your hand, it doesn't cut and bite into you too badly, and as this wears off, you can take it off and put it back on, and you can use electrical tape for that too. It works really well. And you can also do the same back here, and you can actually just do this whole thing with Gorilla Tape. Like I said, these are just for fun. I'm just going to be taking some pop shots with these. So anyways, what I like to do is I use pretty much the whole feather, but what I do is I take the feather and I just take the arrow shaft itself, and I actually kind of crush that feather flat right at the bottom of the vein, where the actual feather deals start. And I'll crush. See if I can't find a better feather. There we go. I want them to be about equal. So I'm going to do the same with this one. I'm just going to crush this flat, just kind of by wrapping it around it. And then I'm going to take some artificial sinew, a good length of it, because you can have extra. And I'm going to do a whip knot to hold this on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my crushed flat spot. I'm going to find where my knock already is, my pre-existing knock, and I want to lay that so that the vein of the feather will actually go right along this. And I want it down from the top just a little ways. Now I can cut some of that feather off, that's not an issue. Sorry for the motorcycle in the background. So I want to make sure that, you know, this is lined up with that pretty close, doesn't have to be perfect. But what I like about this is when this flat spot here, when it flies across my hand or anything, the feather is on the side of the arrow, so it's actually gliding along the smoother bottom. So it doesn't, with the two fletched arrows, what I kept running into too was as the feather would come, well, here I've got another one right here. As the feather would come along, whether or not I flattened this part out or hit these, it would actually kick my arrow up a little bit. So anyways, back to this. This part can be a little frustrating, but what you do is you take your string, you go like this, and you lay this on your arrow along with your feather, like that. And like I said, you just kind of line it up with this, and then you start to wrap it. Try to catch everything in there, and you just wrap it. You start one, and then you come around to the other side. You put your other one on. You wrap it a couple more times and get it locked in, and then you just keep wrapping, a good wrap. And then what you do is you take your excess, sorry, and you put it through the loop that you've made. Come on. Pull it all the way down, and then you pull on this tag-in piece, and that'll pull, because you've got a loop in there and then wrapped it around, it'll pull that down into it. And you can use a pair of pliers to tug that tight. And that should be pretty good. Now, I've got a little blade on a Swiss Army knife. Just goes to show you don't have to have anything big on there or a big blade to do this. Okay, now I've used these for grip, but now I can actually cut them off. Extra feather pieces. The quill, if you will. And that's what that looks like. Now, right now I'm just attaching the feathers to the arrow. So I'm just going to go like that. I'm just attaching. I can come back later and add another wrap to this to even out and make it kind of, because you can kind of see the vein of the feather there is going to catch. Now that won't catch my hand because it'll actually slide right here, but it can catch the side of the arrow. So you can take, and that's kind of what you can do with the Gorilla Tape. And if you had to just use electrical tape or Gorilla Tape, you just flatten that out and then you just wrap it with that. You put a little wrap of electrical tape on, get one feather on, get your other feather on, and then just cut your excess off, and then there you go. Now you can just put a wrap on the back, or you can go ahead and start a wrap here, get it all secured, and then come up and actually whip or wrap up the length of the feathers. And I might try that, but I'm going to do that maybe now. I'll go ahead and do that. But what I'm going to do for that is that's why I like artificial sinew, is you can actually break it down into smaller pieces. So, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to wrap this around and around and get my tail on there, cinched down, and then I can now just kind of wrap my my cord through the feathers here, catch them, kind of split them open so you can get your feathers on there nice and secure. Come on, there we go. And then once I get about an inch from, not my knock, but where I've kind of carved out that little bit there, I'm just going to start wrapping it. And then I'm just going to put a knot in it. And that'll hold that. Now I've got some extra tails up here, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to burn them off. And once it becomes kind of a liquid, I just press it flat with my lighter. Burn that one off. And you might singe your feathers just a little bit. It's not that big of a deal. Push that one flat. Burn that one. Get it off of there. Push it flat. And there you go. Now, it's not pretty, but all this is meant to do is cause drag to keep the back of the arrow from trying to outrun the tip. Because that's what will happen sometimes, is if you've got, like, say, a metal broadhead on this and you shoot it, the end is weighted, so it basically wants to stay still, and that's why you get like the flex in the arrow. You're also shooting around your bow, but sometimes you'll get your end going. So once this thing takes off, these, it's like the tail of a kite. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this extra piece and I'm going to whip this end. And why I want to do that is because to keep this from splitting. So now, I've got my feathers tied on. So now I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to take a knot. I'm going to take this and I'm going to start right at the end of my knock there. Leave a tag left over. And I'm going to start wrapping this really, really good all the way down to where I tied the piece that I wrapped around the feathers in place. And I'm just going to wrap it down good. Tuck my tag in through. Pull this down. And there we go. And then like that, I just take a lighter, burn my extras off, because this is basically plastic string, nylon, whatever. And there's an arrow, double fletched, just make some drag, and there you go. And like I said, this one here flies perfectly straight. It hits hard out of a 45-pound handmade short bow. And all you need to do to make the knock is like a multi-tool saw. So I'm going to do that in part 2.